All right, guys. Thank you for joining for today's session. We have a special guest with us, Artem Golubev. He's a CEO of the company TestRigger. TestRigger is the new age of test automation tool. Artem and I, we were friends 2016, 17, something like that. We knew each other already so far. And back then, Artem, he was just started with his building his company, but now his company is pretty successful, and you guys doing well. How are you, Artem?
Great.
Artem, so today we want to hear about you. Like, how did you start your own business, your own company, TestRigger, and what did you do? I think also your previous background. You are former engineering manager at Salesforce, right? You came here. You are an immigrant, as me, in a first generation. You came here. You started working as a software engineer, and then you went the way up to engineering manager, which is pretty impressive. So can you tell about this story? Like, what did you do before TestRigger?
Sure. Well, I always was into computers and stuff, and like for me, engineering was always fun. And at some point, I decided to move to United States, which I did, and here I started to build a career. But actually, then I realized that I always wanted to build something myself. So this, like I guess from my childhood, I always wanted to build things, and it was apparent at the time that there was a huge issue with end-to-end testing, and I decided that doesn't make any sense. It should be easily solvable. I decided to build a company. And at the beginning, it was always tough, right? I was hanging on a shoestring. I thought, okay, so I either get my first paying customers, or I'm going to go for Google. I had an offer there at hand at the time, and well, we got first paying customers, and then we got investors and so on and so forth. And at some point, then it started to blow up, and we started getting large companies like IDT and Netflix.
Can you share your career path from developer to engineering manager? How long it took you to become an engineering manager? Just a little bit more about this career path.
When I moved to the United States, I had to start from scratch, really. So nobody would give any value to what I've been doing back in Russia. But basically, well, I get to studying. I got my certification. I had this Java Enterprise Edition Architect certification, and worked for like a couple of interesting companies. And after that, it was become easy. The market hit it up, right? So there were a lot of demand for engineers. But I worked quite a good amount of time. Made my career at UpDirect, which is now $1 billion company, and then it was an opportunity to move to Salesforce, and I thought, hey, I know Salesforce. It's the largest employer in San Francisco, and we're known for our great management. So I thought, hey, well, this is great. I want to learn to become a better manager.
So did you get into Salesforce as an engineer, and then you went up to engineering manager, or you applied for engineering manager position?
You getting interviewed on some level, and there were both opportunities for me to go as either individual contributor or manager. I decided to go as a manager.
But before Salesforce, what was your title? You've been as a tech lead?
Yes, so basically I went from a senior engineer to tech lead at UpDirect.
Is TestRigger your first startup, or did you do something else before?
I did, of course. It just didn't work out, or I didn't feel like it will work out, or I didn't feel like I will be able to stick long enough as it. So the startup is, everything will work as soon as you stick to it and it makes sense, right? So you need to be doing something which you're passionate about, and you can stick long enough with, so that you'll see it to get to be successful.
All right, interesting. I think the failure part, well, I mean, this is an experience, right? Anyway, so can you tell maybe about the first startup that didn't work out? Like what kind of startup was and why it didn't work out?
Yeah, I try all kinds of different things. So I tried this dating website, but I didn't go with it. Like this is kind of a temporary thing. Once you're single, like you might be interested once you're married. Another one was an idea to get a way to basically create a shared database of all issues on the internet. But I mean, I couldn't figure out any good viable business model out of it, other than like some kind of a negative way to sell to companies, which was not what I was excited about. So I decided to let it go.
How long, Artem, it took you, like from when you started this for example, the first dating app and the second database startup, how long it took you from the beginning and to the end?
You couldn't probably even call them startups. I was just playing with an idea.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like maybe a year or so or something like that.
A year for each, right?
Yeah,
or
maybe something like that. Yes.
Interesting.
I don't remember right now.
Interesting. I mean, this is very valuable. It means that you were playing around, you were testing it. It didn't work out. You decided, okay, I'm just move forward, right?
Yeah, I was talking to people, for example, this database of issues. I was talking to companies and to people, and a guy was getting negative feedback. Nobody wanted it. But when I was talking about the trigger idea to people got excited. So I got a lot of positive feedback. That's why I started working on it in the first place.
I know that from our last conversation, you told me like, and can you share this story? How did you start TestTrigger? Like,
yeah, the idea came when I was still working at AppDirect, and at the time, I remember we had a lot of Selenium end-to-end tests, and then I was a team lead on one of the most important, probably the most important part of AppDirect. Which is responsible for integrations with third-party application. And mind you, AppDirect is in the marketplace. And then UI team changed UI framework. And what happened is that all Selenium tests just got busted, like nothing worked. We lost all of them, and basically the whole QA team was testing everything manually. And mind you, it took 3 months to this continuous retest and retest and retest, and it was like a huge issue with constant catch up and all this kind of stuff. It was really painful to hear the updates from the QA people what's going on. And even when it didn't help, we ended up with blocker level issues in production, even though we didn't do anything much and we just couldn't catch issues. So somebody made a mistake and it wasn't caught because all Selenium stuff was broken and just there wasn't enough bandwidth to retest everything. You couldn't match with human manpower at the same volume as you can do with automation. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I thought it was like, this is stupid, right? If you think about it, it's just this Selenium testing is basically nonsensical. So it's supposed to catch exactly that situation, it's supposed to catch regressions, especially in those critical cases when people are changing UI framework, right? You would think, okay, so you're changing UI framework, but from end user's perspective, there's exactly zero change, nothing changed. So like the whole regression is supposed to catch issues. In this case, plus everything else which comes after that. But in case of Selenium, it just didn't do anything. It just died and didn't produce any value whatsoever. So I thought that doesn't make any sense. Like, why write a Selenium test then in the first place? Basically, what you're doing is that you're spending lots of engineering time to write glorified unit tests, which tests We don't test end-to-end test, mind you. We test the implementation of how UI engineers coded things. We do not do actual end-to-end tests. And as soon as UI engineers change things, that's it. Everything breaks and has to be rewritten from scratch. So it's basically closer to what you would think should be done on unit test level. Definitely not on end-to-end testing level. That is ridiculous. This is one. And second idea was like, hey, like just everybody writes same tests over and over and over again. Like why couldn't we just generate those tests? With those two ideas, basically, I started to develop some application, and my coworker joined me at some point.
Interesting, but I remember that test trigger was not quite the same as it is today. Like, can you tell about your pivot and like you started from first product, then you changed a little bit direction or you did adjustment? Can you tell about what was it? When did you start and how did you transform it in today's?
Yeah, so we started from automatically generated tests, and mind you, we still have paying customers who are using that feature. It's just figured out that it's basically not really much economically viable for us to do this kind of stuff. There's a lot of compute resources into that, and people perceive it as just a crawler and not capable of doing anything significant. So that is not what we were looking for. So we expanded it. Well, we started expanding the crawler in the first place in order to let people do this stuff, but then we realized people don't even want a crawler in the first place. However, while we originally we did the crawler, it helped us to realize a couple of things. Imagine that you came to us and we within 24 hours generated you 10,000 tests. What we realized is that if those tests are not ultra stable and ultra easily maintainable, nobody going to even use them in the first place.
Yeah.
Because mind you, you wrote your own tests, you might be willing to invest a little bit of time maintaining those tests. But when you get generated tests, no way you're gonna do anything unless it's just maybe something very trivial once in a while. So that was a big revelation, and this is how we had to rethink how stuff works and how to come up with a system which is ultra stable and solves the maintenance issue, right? So when I don't know, like for example, one issue might fail 2,000 tests. What are you gonna do? So you're not going to fix all individual tests. It's mind-boggling. So we come up with a system which shows you like if it's one issue, it is one issue and not just 2,000 tests broken, and you deal with it in one place. You can say, hey, this is not an issue, this is a feature, or like this is how it should work, and so on and so forth. So basically common sense, we had to introduce this is that kind of common sense, and in order to make it stable in the first place, we had to rethink how to execute it such that it doesn't have all of those issues which Selenium has. And the solution was to mimic how humans actually do testing. So there is, there's not the rocket science, it's a lot of work and code and machine learning and all this kind of stuff, but we were able to eventually build a system that does the same thing as a human. But the difference is ginormous if you think about it. How usually people code this stuff and how the same people would execute the same test manually. And if that's nonsensical, it should be the same way. And it's probably the only way to make the test stable in the first place. If you think about it, like Selenium and basically anything else, the problem with stability and the lack of maintainability is because all existing frameworks on the market today, except test trigger, are hooking up on details of implementation. So basically you're saying, hey, find me this element in the DOM tree and deal with this element. So you're talking to the web page and to the browser in terms of elements in HTML structure, which have nothing to do with what the user sees, right? So we basically abstracted it away and say, hey, no DOM structure at all. So we will mimic what users are doing. So you're just expressing how it should work. and it will execute that and file the same elements as you would find as a human doing it manually, exactly the same way you would do it manually, and will interact with those elements exactly the same way as you would do it manually. So and then basically what it ended up happening is that we built tons of stuff which implements common sense. It basically instead of doing the way testing with a programmatic way, like hooking up on all those DOM trees and stuff, it's just emulates human doing that.
Speaking of customers, that's going to be interesting to know your experience to getting the first paying customer. Like, how did you get to this point? And I think it's for most of the startups or companies who is just starting, it's the most painful process.
Yes, I got it. So, well, it was kind of straightforward in retrospect, but I was trying different things. I couldn't figure it out. And then somebody told me, like, hey, but you have those friends who are in business, right? There's QA managers, directors of QA. So I talked to them, and one of them got excited, decided to give it a try. And then once it was working, I say, like, he told us, like, hey, when are we going to start paying?
But I guess you've done a lot of cold outreach back then too, right?
Yeah, it's already like starting from second one, we are all coming through cold outreach.
All right, interesting. So can you tell a little bit about the YC? How did you get there to Y Combinator? Because for a lot of also people, that is very interesting. And I know this is one of the most challenging part and I know that it is a milestone for you guys.
I was applying to YC like all the time, right? What I was applying 10 times or 12 times or something like that. And they were just ignoring me. And then at the point where it was already kind of, we didn't really need them anymore because we were growing pretty fast and it wasn't really an issue. And we were close to getting an investment already on our own. So basically, then they came through and started talking to us, and what got them excited is like our story, how we helped Fortune 1000 company to solve a problem with testing. So basically what was happening is that at some point we got our largest customer at the time, IDT, and they were struggling a little bit with testing because we wanted to get to test automation, and we were paying like millions of dollars to QA engineers to build automation, but we got stuck at about 34%. And we engaged, and within 9 months, we passed 90% of test coverage, because now where manual QA could also build tests, and mind you, everyone was building tests about 15 times faster compared to what we were doing with Selenium. And we just bam and got into where we wanted to be. And I just was talking about this story to YC when we had this in-person interview, and just describing like how TestTrigger helps and what exactly problem does it solve. And basically, the problem we're solving is test maintenance.
How did it change it actually? How YC impacted to TestTrigger?
Like, well, we got a little bit more recognition, and I guess investors started to reach out to us instead of us reaching out to investors.
And did you get your first investor before YC, or was it after?
Way before, of course. We had already our 4 million seed investment before we got into YC.
Artem, do you want to share any other new features that you recently released?
Yes, we released a couple of interesting features like load testing, and also released a way for our customers to find QA engineers on our platform. So you should be able to register with our system and apply to be found to build tests. And our customers are searching from time to time and requesting to build tests. And we have an opportunity, there is a button to hire you, like if you like how you build tests.
Wow, interesting. So guys, if you want to check it out, Test Trigger platform, just go and to testtrigger.com and try to find ability to get a free account. Is it?
Yeah, it's absolutely correct. So just you have to be careful. The free account is for open source, and whatever you're building will be open source. The videos of your tests will be published on YouTube, and those videos themselves will be published on Twitter. We have Twitter feed of all the tests which our customers are doing for open source.
I wish you, Artyom, the best of luck, and I'm very excited to see how it goes for you guys. And I'll definitely will be in touch with you. I'll see you soon in our community and in our YouTube channel. Thank you, Artyom, for taking your time and sharing your story with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to help.